Okay, welcome to the July Solutions Council meeting. Deja vu. So glad everybody's here. We do have a few people that are going to be absent today and a few more joining online and a few that are going to be late. So just know that ahead of time. Packed agenda with lots of good stuff. I see a bunch of staff here to give us updates and important information. I need to hand over the reins to Nicole for this meeting because I am at a one-day event setup, but I'm here listening, present, engaged. I've reviewed all the slides, so looking forward to hearing everything, and I'm glad you're here. Take it over, Nicole.
Thank you, Sharon. Hello, everyone. Good to have you here. We'll look at the next slide just to showcase your agenda. We'll, as usual, start with public comment. You'll note that we have moved updates to the top of the agenda to make sure we get to those critical updates. And then we have two key topics we're bringing forward today. Our program implementation manager is bringing forward a topic around defining how homeless prevention resources can serve the most vulnerable. And then our assistant director of Homeless Services, Jess Larson, is here to talk about an opportunity for emergency funds needs with excess Metro admin funds. So we'll dive right in, but first, I'm not seeing any raised hands of attendees for public comment. Martin, do we have any other public comment to consider?
No public comments.
Great. All right. Well, we'll go straight into updates then, starting with staff updates. I will turn things over to Assistant Director Larson to run through some critical updates. And Jess, you'll be passing it over to Nadia next.
Brilliant. Just a quick sound check. Is my audio working? Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Jess Larson. Happy to be here with you all. Quickly, we just wanted to bring an update that we conduct audits, as you would imagine, regularly as part of our compliance with federal requirements. And we did just complete an audit process as Washington County. And there were findings for the Department of Housing Services work that are really important for us to pay attention to, and has helped define and direct work that was in many cases already underway, but now much more clearly needing to happen. So I want to be clear, though, there were no improper use of funds found, no findings like that. The findings were mainly around internal controls and procedures that manage for our financial processing and grant management responsibilities. One of them was with our COC program regarding how we maintain and track the required matching funds as part of our COC work. So that is an example of internal control process that is, I believe, already underway to be implemented going forward. So these are always really important opportunities for us to learn and process, improve and correct procedures. I think a lot of the findings also reflected our very quick growth and some staff transitions that resulted in kind of loss of information in between. So I think the reason we're sharing this information with you is because of your role in advising us as the Continuum of Care program and our overall homeless services work, but also to be transparent with you that we are a learning institution. We are doing our work to continually improve those required financial procedures, and that this work of fiscal stewardship then does, impact our partners in the requirements that we have to pass through to ensure we comply with those requirements. So that's, I think, the general update. The findings were important and significant, but we have retained our bond rating as the county, which was important reassurance for us to demonstrate the quality and first-class service of our oversight work here in Washington County. So that's that update. Oh, thank you, Nicole. Yes, Nicole's putting in the chat a link to the presentation that was given to the Board of Directors, Board of Commissioners, if you would like to dig further into that information. With that, over to Nadia.
Hi, all. I just wanted to give some quick updates. On August 5th. You should all have received an invite, hopefully, about our summer social, which is going to be at Nueva Esperanza. We're going to have an ice cream summer social, which hopefully in these really hot days sounds really amazing. At the summer social, we're going to talk about something that I'll just mention right now, which is the Community Cares Award. We are hoping to start a new tradition of celebrating folks in our community who are advancing our mission, vision, and cares values. So that's the values of collaboration, accountability, responsiveness, equity, and sustained impact. And for this inaugural award, we are asking that advisory body members nominate folks in the community that you know of that you think would embody this spirit. And the winner will be announced at the Housing Forum, and the Housing Forum will be on October 30th. So that's another date to keep in mind. Some of you may have attended last year or in years prior. This year we are doing it a little bit earlier than last year. So it'll be at the very end of October. And that is all that I have.
Great. Thank you, Nadia. Sorry, we're in the same room, so there's some muting challenges, but hopefully that wasn't too much echoing for you all. Just before I turn it back over to Assistant Director Larson, I want to share some other updates. As you may recall, we had talked about having our colleague in government relations come back and provide more of a legislative summary. Our agenda was really packed, and we prioritized getting feedback from you all rather than updating you all. So I'm going to put some information in the chat that shares where we landed on legislative investment, so you're able to see that, digest in that summary. So you're welcome to dive through that. If you have questions, let us know. We can work on getting you responses. The top line message for me is there's still quite a bit of housing investment despite some of the reductions we're seeing, and seeing the most severe reductions in eviction prevention resources. So you'll hear more about that in this meeting, but we're eager to see these investments and have been talking and having positive conversations with the agency already. We also want to share some updates on the Metro front. Many folks know Metro is considering governance reform. Those conversations are ongoing. Nothing around governance reform has passed the Metro Council, but we'll continue to keep you updated on anything SHS governance. The Metro Council did pass tax rate changes, and they indexed the SHS personal income tax measure beginning in calendar year 2026. So it's a minor impact, but do want you all to be tracking that that's a change coming from our largest funder. And we'll keep you posted as they continue and that council continues to look at SHS reform. And last thing before I turn it back over to Jess, I'm incredibly excited to share. We've talked a lot about transitional housing in this space. Our Cornell Recovery Housing is moving along, and the RFP, the request for proposals for a service provider, has launched. There's more information. If you have questions, let me know. There's not much we can say outside of the process, but there'll be pre-conferences and lots of things to learn more, and we'll of course bring updates as we select a provider. Well, with that, I will turn things back over to Jess to talk about federal updates and other things moving.
Thanks, Nicole. And sorry, y'all, we are a little out of order with the bullets here, but we are covering all of the items. So I'm jumping up to the recent federal action, and my second assignment is to just update you all with where the county is at in processing our analysis of what the changes in our grant agreements from the federal government mean for our ability to continue to conduct the business and the important work we're doing through those federal grants. So as you may recall, the president and the new administration launched their year with new executive orders, and unusually, our new grant documents that we renew on an annual basis with HUD include language that requires compliance with executive orders. So it's a really big deal, and we need to do thorough legal analysis to understand what those requirements would mean for us as a county. Our COC program is one of the programs in which we receive funding from the federal government, and one of the programs that is kind of caught up in this urgent and emerging legal analysis to understand how Washington County continues to do the work that we've been doing through these programs and comply with the law as drafted in these documents. So a couple updates since we've talked with you last about this. Our county administration office is working with ACRE, which is our sorry, I always forget the A, a committee on racial, what's the A? Advisory Committee on Racial Equity. And that committee was stood up when we first launched our Office of Equity, Inclusion, and Community Engagement, I think back in 2018. And they created an equity resolution that has been guiding much of our work in the county. And the content of that resolution needed to be considered in light of these new federal executive orders. And our our county administrator's office is working with the members of ACRE and our Access and Opportunity Office, which has replaced the Office of Equity and Inclusion and Engagement, to prepare a resolution that will affirm our commitment to federal law and non-discrimination law so that work is underway, and we are anticipating the board to consider that resolution on July 22nd. And if all goes according to plan, that resolution will also kind of clear the legal path forward for us to assign the agreements with HUD. So that is work underway, but that is currently what our understanding in the Department of Housing Services is for our path to continue the work under the Continuum of Care grants and in partnership with our contracted providers. And there's plenty of content to link to here as well. So I might lean on my staff team to help put any of those links into the chat, and we'll keep you posted as there's more shared along the way too. Okay, with that, Nicole, I'll turn it back to you.
All right, and folks, I didn't have those links prepped, so we might get those later on or send them in a follow-up email, but we can certainly get you more information. We're going to continue on with the updates portion and move to updates from other committees. I know Bina Valdez is here to talk about the Housing Advisory Committee, and this gives you all time to think about if you have updates from any of the other committees listed here. We have not had a technical subcommittee meet since our last meeting, so nothing there. But if you have updates from these committees or other standing groups, we'd love to hear them. In the meantime, BNF, I will turn it over to you.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. It's weird to be meeting in a virtual setting, but it's nice to see everyone. So yes, I'm here to provide the HAC update for this month. Just for the record, I'm BNF Valdez. I'm am the liaison for the Housing Advisory Committee. So we are holding our July meeting, July 24th, 9 to 11 a.m. As per usual, those meetings are recorded. So if any advisory members want to join, they can join via Zoom or they can watch the recording afterwards. So just quickly gonna update the Solutions Council on what we're talking about this month, which is there's a lot of overlap. So obviously with the federal bill passed and the legislative session concluded, there's a lot that's going to impact some of our work. So we're going to receive some highlights from the legislative session this year, understand the impacts of funding that we'll obviously experience as a housing authority. So hopefully get more information there about that. We're also doing our quarterly financial update. So this is something that we do quarterly just to maintain financial transparency and see how we as the Housing Authority are doing fiscally. So we're going to do that. And then lastly, we're going to have our Public Housing Agency Plan policy primer to just keep in the know with some of the work that's happening there, obviously considering everything that's happening right now federally. So yeah, lots of great discussions and topics this month. And then our August meeting is canceled just because of summer, but hope to come back in September. And like I said, if there's anything that you'd like to be informed about, we are recorded, and there's also recordings on our hack page. So thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you. And I see, Jim, your hand's up. I'll go to you next.
Thank you. Well, essentially, you gave the Metro report already, so I'm going to echo what Nicole said. It did meet. There was a report from the President's Committee, and basically, as she said, the oversight function of the Tri-County Planning Board and the SHS Oversight Committee are being restructured, whatever that means. Also in the meeting, there's the usual revenue report, which actually gave no major surprises as far as revenue collection, so no doom and gloom. And then there was some discussion about tweaking the benefits and the accuracy of the input output data that we're receiving from the county. So hopefully that will be improved by the next meetings. So there's that. Thanks, Nicole, for doing the report.
Thanks, Jim. And I'll add just one more piece of detail from what you shared. We are in a data sharing agreement with Metro, and that first batch of data is coming over to them this summer. So more information to come, and regionalized in a way that is accessible to anyone in the region. So excited for that. Pausing to see if there's any other updates or questions on what's been raised during the updates. All right, well, as our chair said at the top of the meeting, we do have a number of meaty topics for you, 2 of those, and we'll start with Katie Gentry on the first one. Katie, I will turn it over to you.
Thanks, Nicole, and excited to be back with you all. Katie Gentry, I use she, her pronouns, and I am the Washington County Programs Implementation Branch Manager. I'm here today to talk to you about the Homeless Prevention Fund. I know we've spent a little bit of time talking about it with you all over the last few months, but want to dive in. If we'll go to the next slide. The focus of this fund is really to identify the folks who are most at risk of experiencing homelessness and to target the assistance to those folks. Really, the goal of the fund is to make sure that we are pairing short financial assistance with short-term case management and really get folks out of that crisis situation. So really identifying who are the folks that are most at risk of, without this assistance and case management, will experience homelessness, and also with this limited, tiny amount of financial assistance and tiny amount of case management will be successful in maintaining their housing. So it may not be for everybody because they have too much risk of falling into homelessness, and this limited assistance is not the right resource for them. So it's $2.5 million from January to June of next fiscal year, with the goal of launching in January of 2026. With that, I will go to the next slide. The eligible folks for this are housed and at significant risk of losing housing within 30 days. So really, they don't yet need to have an eviction notice, but having that risk of losing the housing. They'll be working with our housing liaisons. Those are folks identified throughout our community already in our system, and those folks are already working with people who fit this population need. So the goal of that team is to develop a housing stability plan with those folks, determine if this amount of services will prevent them entering homelessness, and then get them connected to that funding. They'll be using a screening tool to assess which of these potential participants are at greatest risk. So ask a bunch of questions, and then the requirement is really not only that screening tool, but also that stability plan to show that this amount of funding will have it be successful, with also using the least amount of funding possible through that discussion with the participant. Next slide. So the risks that we've identified and really are coming to you all to say, did we capture it? What are we missing? What other feedback do you all have? Is past experience of homelessness. So they've been in homelessness in the last 3 years. There's a history of housing instability. So moving frequently, don't have a lease, kind of the things about couch surfing, doubled up with family or friends. A significant and short-term impact has caused that housing instability. So domestic violence, death of a family member, change of family composition. So you were a dual income household, now you're a single income household. Institutional involvement, foster care, jail, hospital, kind of any of those things that like you got sick, now you're in the hospital, lost the job, but have ability to work again and get reconnected and stay housed in that situation. Next frame. So questions for you all, and happy to answer any questions about the information I gave too. Are there any other high risk that we should be considering as eligible for homeless prevention services? So I'll pause and have that, and then read the other question for you is what other steps should the program take to ensure that resources will result in housing stability, if folks have thought on that. But we'll start with this first one. Are there other high risks that should be considered as eligible? And see if you all have anything for that.
Martin, to support this conversation, would you go back to the previous slide? I'll put the questions in the chat, but I think it might be helpful to have that, thank you, that those identified risks handy. And I see your hand.
Let me get my camera on. So I think for such as domestic violence, I don't know if y'all would want to include DVSA, because I think that domestic violence is very narrow. So sexual assault should be included in there because it is a huge one where we do bump into a lot and see a lot of folks being at risk of becoming homeless as well, or have been homeless in the past.
Thank you. That's helpful feedback.
Thank you.
Christina?
I think in terms of like the institutional involvement, I think if you're including mental health cases where the need for hospitalization is necessary, and not being able to get back to housing.
Tina, I apologize to interrupt you, but your sound is a little garbled. It's hard to understand. Is that just for me or other folks experiencing that?
Is it other people do? I can type it if that helps as well.
I'm sorry, it's hard to understand.
Yeah, Christina, you sound a little bit like a robot, unfortunately.
That's fun. Okay, I'll type it.
While Christina is typing, are there other thoughts on these identified risk factors, or if there's other kind of amendments or edits to what's on the screen, or new additions to risk factors? All right, I'll uplift Christina's comment. Institutional involvement, persons hospitalized or working through a mental health care issue. Jim.
I don't know if this applies, but are we able to project the impact of federal cuts on people who are currently housing, and will they be noted to be at significant risk, and would they be susceptible to be able to help by this short-term funding?
Jim, what a great point. We're still obviously watching closely what happens with fiscal year 26 resources from the federal government. For the most part, this fiscal year is steady, with a very large exception to the emergency housing voucher program, which is being discontinued. We don't see it impacting residents in Washington County until mid 2026 till late 2027, but certainly an important call out. Katie, any thoughts or response to that suggestion?
Yeah, I think this would capture under the at significant risk. I don't know though, depending on what program they're in, if they're on a long-term rental assistance program, this short-term assistance probably isn't going to be the right solution for them. Obviously, it may be that this short-term is a solution until they get into affordable housing or something like that, which would make them eligible, but that would be something kind of that the housing liaison would be working with them on to figure out, like, is this the short-term solution until the lease is ended, or so that we're not kind of leading to an eviction. But that's kind of the creative problem solving that we're really kind of leaning into the housing liaisons with their housing stability plan to focus on. So not to say that they would be ineligible, but if a long-term rental assistance program is ending, it may not be the right solution here instead. And I think, as Nicole mentioned, really kind of chewing through what some of those solutions would be looking like kind of on that other side, recognizing that these are folks who need a longer solution, longer runway.
Pausing to leave space if there's any other questions or comments. We're a shorter group today, so I want to encourage folks. I know we're usually tight on time and rushing through. Feel free to circle back around for a second comment or elaborate more than you might typically in a meeting where we're packed and going back and forth. All right, well, I'm not seeing any. Martin, if you could go to the previous slide to this one. Katie, I'll pose that question for you, so you don't have to. What other steps should the program take to ensure homeless prevention resources will result in housing stability?
I guess as folks are chewing on that, I may add that we are working at rolling out housing stability plan training with our housing liaisons, as this is kind of a newer like ask and structure, as well as sample templates. So our housing liaison team will be rolling that out over in August and September to really start to build this muscle as we look to release this funding in January as well.
I'm so not used to this group being this quiet.
Did I by any chance fix my microphone issue?
You did.
I'm not robotic. Okay. So I feel like there are a lot of peers that we work with who they have a fear of receiving or getting the mental health treatment that they need, or going into the hospital because of a fear of not being able to pay for their rent or for their housing. And I just feel like I want to speak to that, because I feel like that's we want people to receive the care and the treatment that they need without fear of being evicted because they can't pay for. So I feel like that speaks to short term. Hopefully, my thought. So if there's any way to advocate for support for people who are looking into getting treatment, but they, have this fear surrounding what might happen with their housing.
I think that's a great point, because our whole point, like what we want to do is help people be successful. And sometimes success means having to pull people they have to leave where they're living to be able to get the service and the support that they need. So thank you, Christina, for bringing that up. That's a really great.
Yeah. And I mean, even with that, going even a step further, like there is also fear of their items, like their household belongings. If I go into treatment, what happens to those things? So having that security and understanding what happens to their lives and their belongings, I think is really an additional important piece to make sure that people feel secure about.
Thanks, Christina and Hannah. That was super helpful. Can I ask for a further clarifying point here? Is that this because of the focus for it to be short term, do y'all have any feedback on should there be like a limitation to that of like up to a certain amount of time in a treatment facility, or it's kind of like the entire, as long as we can continue to verify that they're in that treatment facility? Just any thoughts or feedback there, recognizing that can look really different, especially once somebody is inside of a treatment facility too.
I think verifying how long they're in treatment, they can do ROIs and there can be like small progress updates or things like that, just so that way, because as we know, the acuity is very different today and it continues being it's very different than what it used to be. And sometimes what used to take 30 to 60 days is sometimes taking 90 days now, to be able to gain the stability to move back into independent structure.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that having some kind of, the ROIs are, that's a possibility in making sure that that structure can take place in order to get people to support, and verifying that they are in treatment, they are receiving services, and unable to assist themselves otherwise, if that makes any sense. And continuing that conversation. A lot of it's case by case basis and recommended by the case manager or the Washington County liaison that's actually giving them the funding, or however that works. But most of these treatments they can be a 90-day treatment up to 6 months. So if short-term help or assistance looks like a 6-month assistance, then, cap it or something of that nature.
Thanks all for that feedback. Super helpful.
Any other? Oh, Jim, go ahead.
Well, just following on what Christina said, this sounds a lot like some of the people that we're talking about going into transitional housing, both the substance abuse and the mental health system. It sounds like, and those are generally, I think, going to be considered to be relatively longer term. So, is that the kind of people we're thinking about?
I can jump in here, but Christina, I think you also had a response. Jim, I think it kind of depends on the individual situation. So if the person is no longer going to be in a lease, but if they are in a lease currently, like, can we break that lease and they're going to go from treatment into transitional housing and then back into a new lease potentially? Or is this somebody who is going into a treatment facility and then straight back into that lease that is already existing? So I think that is everything that the housing liaison should kind of navigate through, of like, is a lease break actually a better situation and stuff in storage versus kind of working through keeping that lease and having them go back after working through the mental health crisis or the treatment, the substance use treatment, where they were there temporarily.
Yeah, I would definitely say the same thing. I would agree. And again, case by case, right? And so it's almost like a yes and, if that makes. I did have a comment about the repeating or the question, what other steps should the program take to ensure homeless prevention resources will result in housing stability? What is how are these being measured, right? So I'm assuming that there's a metric for making sure that it's being reevaluated, right? I'm assuming that's existing. So
yeah, we'll be looking at housing stability for 6 months and 12 months after assistance. So ensuring folks are still housed 6 months after and 12 months after. Granted, we are only as good as them calling into us as the emergency room. So kind of entering back into the homeless management information system, or giving us kind of calls back so that we know that they are in crisis once again. So no news is sometimes good news in our situation, but really kind of going based off of the data that we will know through the homeless management information system.
Pausing to see if there's more results, or more questions or comments on the process of the program. And I might, Martin, if we could go to the next slide, it might be helpful to just, Adam, it's good to have you. We finished the first question, and maybe I'll circle back and see if you have anything to add. We're curious if there's other high risk criteria that we should consider for folks to be eligible for homeless prevention services.
I mean, that's a really broad question. I'm sorry. Like I'm entering it halfway in. Like if I'm going to advocate though for, you know, our priority populations that we're working with at HealthShare are those that we're considering our high risk behavioral health ecosystem populations. So those with psychosis, substance use, unintentional overdose. We've got stimulant use disorder, and then those with oh gosh, they would be so mad at me for having to look this up, but anyone who's in our like high risk ecosystem, if we could find a way to keep them from getting to the streets, because right now, like this is, I'm gonna like some fast, like cool information that we're just learning about. Like out of the folks we were able to match all of the HMIS data from Multnomah County. 1/3 of all active clients in Multnomah County's HMIS data are from HealthShare's ecosystem population. And it's kind of like incredible thinking about how that is such a huge shared population that we know are really causing a lot of resources, needing a lot of resources in both the housing world and the healthcare world. So if we can keep them housed in the first place, that would be a huge priority for HealthShare and support. I would support that 100%.
Thanks, Adam. You said you didn't have much to add, and I put you on the spot, and you had really brilliant things to add, so much appreciation for that. Katie, I think I jumped in when you were about to jump in, so I'll turn back to you.
Yeah, I think the other, thanks, Adam, for that. And I think the thing that we are also thinking about with this program is how do we leverage HRSN and the work that our partners there are doing. So really trying to identify the right lane for all of the different resources and making sure there's and the right resources for the right time for the right person as they're presenting in our system. So had a meeting about that yesterday, and we'll continue to think about this program in partnership with HRSN.
Christina?
Hey, my brain started to like think about, as Adam was talking, the aging population, and I don't feel like that's one of the risk populations that are on there, but I do know that, as Adam said, as Adam was talking, I do know that in the aging disabilities for Washington County, I know that keeping an aged person, that's going to sound really bad, keeping a person who is of a higher age in a stable housing environment for them is really important. And so I would think the same thing would transfer here. So maybe looking at something to do with connecting with the aging population.
Thanks, Christina.
Totally positive. I don't know if that came across negative. I apologize if it did.
Not at all. I think older adults is a group we're like trying to look into more, and trying to figure out what's the right solution. We do have one of our housing liaisons in our disability, aging, and veteran service department at Washington County. One of the things that we've kind of been chewing on, it is something we're trying to add points to in our screening tool, is over 55, but does just 1 month or a couple months of rent actually assist versus that kind of much more longer term. So something that we're working with those housing stability plans to say, like, maybe it is a month or two to get them into affordable housing or get them into assisted living or whatever that may look like, but recognizing that if there isn't a an income long-term, that just that 1 month may not really help, but rather just delay. So I think that's a lot of the questions that we will be asking and chewing through with our housing liaisons is this actually going to help resolve the pending situation, or is this just delaying the situation that is happening with the individual, and that something that is this short term is not going to actually assist folks? Only the easiest question for us and our liaisons to answer.
Well, I'm pausing on the discussion slides to see if there's any final comments on these questions, or if anything else is coming up for Katie and her team to consider as they design this homeless prevention intervention. Say that three times fast. All right, well, I'm not seeing any hands or anyone coming off mute. Thank you, Katie, for joining. Thank you all for the great conversation. There's a lot for us to take back and chew on as we continue to work on getting this program off the ground. And with that, Jess, I will turn things back over to you.
Thank you, Nicole, and thank you, everyone. That was really fruitful discussion and exactly what we're seeking here in the Solutions Council, learning and hearing from you, your recommendations, your guidance, your expertise on how we, at a policy level, shape our programmatic work. So very excited for the team to be bringing forward our new homeless prevention program in the coming months, and really grateful for your help to shape that. So hard pivot here. This discussion is about a funding opportunity, and another area where we would really welcome your community guidance before we proceed with the next step. We have been invited, if you will, to request of Metro funding. It would be one-time funding for emergency needs, as the slide says, from their administrative resources. As you may recall, Metro takes 5% of the SHS measure for administrative purposes, and they have not spent that full amount and have collected, I think, about a 30 million roughly carryover from their admin allowance. And recently the city of Portland requested some emergency funding for some new shelter work that the mayor's office wanted to lead, and Metro and Multnomah County worked together to use these unallocated administrative funds at Metro to pass through one-time funding for that purpose. And as such, they've invited the other two counties to consider if we have any emergency needs. And so that's what we're bringing forward to you, because indeed we believe that we do, and we would like to move forward making a financial ask to Metro in the very near term. So that's the high level, and I'll move through the slides now to get into the more specifics. I think I might have already said some of this, but the amount that Metro passed through from Multnomah County to the city of Portland was 15 million. And so in that third slide, or third bullet, you'll see that we estimate that this might mean up to $10 million for Washington County to be asked for us to ask for. And it's important to stress, and that's why the words are highlighted, that this is only one-time funding. So we want to think strategically about what kinds of needs and emergency needs would benefit from one-time funding. And it is not a guaranteed ask. We do have to make this request to Metro, and it's our understanding that they are most interested in looking at emergency needs of our system here in Washington County. So that's the context or further background. Next slide, please. So our initial recommendation is that we see two critical issues right now in Washington County that would benefit from one-time funding. First, and you all heard it here last month from our partner and fellow member on the Solutions Council, Zoe, at Community Action, that eviction prevention resources were severely reduced in the state's budget from this session. And right now, Community Action, which is our Washington County-wide implementer of those resources, they've had to put the program on immediate hold because the funding available to continue operating any eviction prevention is so unknown, and they did not have any resources to continue keeping the phone lines open. So any household in Washington County that has an eviction notice pending does not have someone at the other end of the phone, to receive their request at this time. And that to us is a real emergency issue here in Washington County. The second item is around capital projects that we've moved forward through many years of careful planning with our one-time funds from SHS in the early years. We also had under-allocated or underspent resources that carried forward, and we built a multi-year capital project investment strategy that includes shelters and access centers and transitional housing. You've all been hearing about that along the way. And there are a few projects that are underway, and due to cost escalations, they are experiencing some significant gaps in their project budget. And so that also presents an opportunity for emergency one-time funds. Next slide, please. I think the next two slides get into our specific potential recommendations, and this is what we would like your feedback on. So given the context with Community Action's eviction prevention, oh, I'm sorry, let me start with the first bullet. We've seen a 60% reduction in statewide funding for eviction prevention. And so that has a significant impact for Community Action. They've delivered about $3.8 million a year previously with these resources. So that's the amount that's going to be reduced by 60%. On average, they're providing about $6,000 of rent assistance, emergency rent assistance, to keep a household housed. And they've found that 91% of their households are actually successful. They remain in housing and they only need that one-time intervention. They've also found that the most common household served is a single mom, aged 25 to 44. So if you can kind of understand who's calling that crisis line, asking for an emergency rent assistance, and the efficacy of that programmatic work that Community Action has been leading for our county. So the reason we believe this is a suitable one-time funding ask is it could serve two purposes. One, it could allow Community Action to turn back on their phone line system essentially immediately and continue meeting that need that is always there every month, and plan for a more thoughtful ramp down of that program over time if this indeed the state, if there is not going to be any further state funding for eviction prevention. But it would also allow for some time for continued advocacy, which I know the eviction prevention and homeless services and housing kind of community is working together broadly across the state of Oregon to advocate for significant increase in those resources. So by using these one-time resources, we could sort of plug a hole and make a plan, essentially. All right, next slide. So the second recommendation would be around those capital projects I was mentioning. Some of the considerations here is that the construction costs are increasing due to the chaotic nature of our economy with the tariff threats and general economic uncertainty. There's been some delays in the projects and just general cost escalations that are different than when we entered into contract for these capital projects. So we want to be clear here, like the one-time emergency ask of funding would be for capital projects currently with contract underway so that we wouldn't be increasing the budget for capital projects that are still in conception, if you will. We would just focus on capital projects that are underway and suddenly have a gap that was not planned for. I think that's the second bullet. Okay. And so thank you. Yes, please proceed. You had that right, Nadia. Okay, so here is the draft proposal staff is working with and would love your feedback on. We would like to consider the idea of asking Metro to pass through admin funds. We would want them to maximize the availability up to the 10 million that would be Washington County's portion. And we would recommend asking that 40% of those funds be used to restart eviction prevention services and plug that hole, if you will, and buy some time for that critical program in our county. And that about 60% would be used for any active project that suddenly has a budget gap in their project in order to complete the capital efforts underway. So there's just a smaller number of those capital projects. Next slide. So our questions to you are really, are we thinking about this right? Are these the right kinds of emergencies for us to be prioritizing right now? And are they well suited for the resources that are limited for one time only kind of response? And then the last part here is a note that there are a couple of Solutions Council members who do have a direct conflict with this proposal. So they've been asked not to participate in the discussion or because of the bylaws. All right, I'll turn it back to you, Nicole, I think, to facilitate our conversation. Eager to hear any questions you all might have about these two considerations and proposals, but really welcome your feedback on are we thinking about this strategically for our community's needs right now?
Thanks, Jess. And we'll start with the first question. Are these the two right priorities? Do either of these seem off in any way to members?
Can you go back to the last? Thank you. You're on it.
Jim, I see your hand up.
Just a clarification question. Of the capital projects that we're thinking about funding, I don't need the specifics, but how many projects are we talking about that are in difficulty?
There are two that have potential that are in active loan agreements that are under construction that we anticipate capital gaps because of the economic uncertainty.
I definitely think prioritizing the eviction prevention services, because we know as providers and people that work in the fields that we work in, it increases, and Adam probably can attest to this even more so than anybody else, but it increases hospital visits. It increases so many other resources when it's like and it's also just like a basic human, you know what I mean? Just keeping people houses. We're seeing people coming into our services every day where it's like, hey, we couldn't pay our rent anymore. That leads to return to uses. That leads to increase in mental health symptoms. That increase, like losing housing is like, it increases everything else, which then we're dumping resources into, or money into other resources. And so if we could just start at the beginning of the eviction prevention, I think that's a really great thing to bring back.
So I think I would probably echo that. I mean, eviction prevention is like, we have seen, the results of the stopping eviction prevention, recently, even at our own place. And I'm talking about NAMI. But the thing that I would say is the eviction prevention resources, that's the community action piece of it. Is that right? And I'm assuming then that comes with a specific portion of the funding going to researching or not researching, figuring out the ramp down, because this is a one-time fund. So about a year ago, when we knew that this funding was being taken, or not, we were not going to get all the funding that we thought we were going to get, if that makes sense. You know, those agencies were basically told to ramp down. So my fear is that in a year from now, we're going to be in the same place that we are now if we don't request or require that they significantly, or they figure out that ramp down or an alternative or a something, a new something or a different, because otherwise the county is just going to have to keep, either we cut it off and it's done and we reap those, you know, the bad things, consequences, or we're going to have to keep digging and searching and fighting for more money. So I feel like it's just a battle. So that was my feedback. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's based on the eviction portion process.
Christina, thank you. I'm going to jump in here. I really want to receive everyone's feedback, but you're raising such an important point. I want to provide a little bit of clarification because it's something I missed in my talking points. You're spot on. Absolutely consideration for, you know, what happens if the funds are not increased at the state level and how we plan for ramp down. You will all remember, as Christina has reminded us here, that SHS funds did increase, did create one-time funding for eviction prevention as a step-down plan from COVID era eviction prevention resources. And then that step down ended this fiscal year. But what was not anticipated was that on top of that stepping down eviction prevention, that the state legislature would suddenly reduce the stable funding for eviction prevention as much as it did. So that's the sudden crisis here. It's not the planned ramp down that had been underway already, and why we feel some need to respond. But I appreciate your caution and concern that we respond with thoughtfulness because they are one-time resources.
I'm going to see if any folks have additional feedback on these two proposals. Jim.
Oops, where'd I go? Am I lost?
We hear you.
Okay, I assume that the 60% for the capital projects is adequate?
Well, that's my instinct was to jump in on this one. My apologies. You want me to take it? Great. All right. Well, I think, Jim, the complex factor here is with capital projects, there's value engineering we're able to do. So we can determine, you know, we had planned to put this office here with these features. We'll reduce those features, which reduces the cost. So sufficient is a challenging word because capital projects can always take a bit more money. They can always do something exciting. But we feel that this is helpful in addressing the cost escalation we're seeing, particularly with materials, and understanding the August 1st potential tariff deadline or marker that this administration has put out there. So it is a helpful resource. Any additional resources, this would, if we receive $10 million from Metro, this would be $6 million. Any additional resource in capital projects always gives breathing room because value engineering is going to come regardless of how tight the budget is. There will always be a moment where things will need to be evaluated, and this gives space to our projects to continue that trauma-informed design.
I think, I mean, my point is, you know, the eviction prevention is just a tragedy. I mean, it's just a complete tragedy, and that's where the money should go if we had it. But, you know, it would be a shame to not fund the capital projects adequately and have two things that are not going to work well. So I just want to make sure that we think that this is enough.
I think the intent here is to ensure any projects that are underway and might have stalled out or not have been able to see the path forward to completion, that this ask will ensure that those projects can get done as planned and bring their capacity online for the system that's waiting for it to be here.
And Jim, if I could hear what I heard as maybe a recommendation from you, if I could repeat that back as a recommendation that we propose these percentages as kind of initial proposal to Metro and hold some flexibility to adjust as we fully understand the needs in working with community action and with our capital project sponsors. Is that kind of what you were getting at, or am I jumping too far?
I could never have phrased it as beautifully and fluently as you did, Nicole. So of course, that's the correct answer.
Oh, well, I heard it directly from your mouth. All right, folks, I'm pausing to see if there's any more feedback on these two items. But while folks are thinking about that, also curious, did we miss an emergency item? Is there something in happening in community in the homeless services space or adjacent that needs urgent support?
I mean, I think that there's always things that need emergency support. So, I mean, I just want to go on the record and saying like there's a lot that needs support. I mean, shelters, yes, need more of them, need more beds. But I fully recognize that with this, you have to take direction, and you have to be specific. So, you know, and one-time funds, shelter bed is not going to do, it's not going to do anything for a one-time fund. So making sure that the capital projects that are going to be worked on are ones that are active and underway. I mean, that does make some sense.
Right, I think that was a healthy enough pause if folks had additional feedback. Maybe, Martin, if you could head to the questions slide one more time, we'll pause here. And if no one jumps in, Jess, we'll turn it over to you to head to the next slide.
I'm going to give a compliment. I did a presentation at the Oregon Recovers Conference this week, and how I started it was with the point in time count for the Tri-County area, and everyone was very amazed at all the resources and the things that are happening in Washington County that is helping the populations that Washington County is serving. So everyone was very amazed to see that it was the unsheltered folks only increased by 9 people. So give a little kudos.
Thank you, Hannah. We always need to celebrate the wins. We have a lot of work to do, so let's take those moments.
Yeah.
Indeed, a team effort. Thank you, Hannah. And thank you all for the really healthy discussion here. We appreciate it. You know, of course, if there's a dollar out there for us to go get and bring back to meet the needs in our community, it's our public responsibility to go get those resources. And then, you know, we lean on you all to make sure we're getting the strategy right to maximize the impact of those resources. So we really appreciate your feedback today. I think the next slide that Nicole is referencing talks about what we're going to do next. Okay, awesome. So we're going to take this feedback and refine the proposal, as you saw Nicole and Jim do live, and all the other feedback you provided will help us refine this recommendation. We're going to bring this to our Board of County Commissioners. I don't yet have clarity on the process for how our board wants to engage in this. And I also don't yet have clarity with Metro on the precise process, but I do know that Metro staff are keen to work with us as Washington County staff to jointly bring the recommendation forward to their Metro Council. So our staff will be working on refining that proposal and then making sure both elected bodies are aware and in support, hopefully, of approving these resources as many up to $10 million that we can bring back for one-time emergency needs, and we will keep you posted.
All right, well, thank you, Jess, and thank you all. This felt much slower. I keep having to remind myself we had a lot less folks that were jumping in, so we brought what we felt was a packed agenda, and it wasn't as packed, but we were glad to have that extra space for conversation. This concludes our planned agenda. Since we do have a little extra time, I want to see if there's other committee member updates that folks would like to share. And Martin, we can take down the slides just to see if there's updates from the committee, anything happening in the next month or happened in the recent month that they'd like to share out. All right. Well, seeing none, Chair Marshall, if you're in a place to say goodbye, would you like to? All right. Well, I think Kim is working hard to set up the one-day event to, that Project Homeless Connect is hosting tomorrow. Oh, there you are, Kim. I see ya. All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining, and appreciate the feedback today. If you do have additional thoughts, we're always eager to hear them.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks all.